What's up, everybody? We are back. John Della Rose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, coming at you with a surprise read, Quasar Classic Volume 1. Now, there only is one volume of this. There is another volume called Quasar Cosmic something or other. If you look up Quasar Cosmic on Amazon, you'll be able to find it. And that's an epic-sized collection that does issues 10 through 25, and this does issues 1 through 9. But it's also got a little bit of material from Avengers Annual 18 and Marvel Comics Presents 29. A couple of short comics in there that just build the hype for Quasar as they release this. Now, apparently Mark Grunwald, who's the writer here, wanted to make this Quasar book for a long time, got turned down, brought it out of the can again a couple years later, and that's the story behind Quasar. He was a character that appeared in Captain America for a couple issues, the Avengers for a couple issues, the Defenders for a couple of issues, and just kind of got shelved for about 10 years until they made this book. And I believe the first books came out in 1989. So this is towards the tail end of that beautiful Bronze Age of comics, and it was a lot of fun, I gotta tell you. I came in really knowing not much about this character whatsoever. I got it for, I picked this up for $5, that's why I got it. And it was well worth the read, in my opinion. Now, this first issue is by Mark Grunwald and Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan's art's really good, very good Marvel House style, which I very much enjoy from the 1980s comics. And it goes over this guy who got his bands. He's at like a shield screw up, not really doing well. And these bands are found by shield and then are used by someone. Oh, I got a cat in the way. Get out of the way, cat. Cat, come on, you're not... Cat? Okay, you can be in the video. You just can't sit on the comic. Hello. What's going on, cat? All right. Don't sit on the comic. Don't sit on the comic. There. All right. Anyway, Wendell Vaughn, the screw-up, gets these powers from this deal, averts a crisis of disaster, and that's it for the setup issue. There's a lot of backstory in here that kind of goes over those several issues and the bands, the power bands he's got history as sort of a setup and prelude for here. Issue 2, and apparently that takes place back in 1979 or whatever when the character was appearing in those issues. Now, issue 2 introduces Eon. He's one of the cosmic guys, and Quasar, that is, goes to Neptune to find out what's going on with these bands. Comes up with this, starts fighting this guy who's basically a death, sort of character. Who goads him saying, "You want to die, you're such a mess up, blah, 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 blah." And he ends up meeting Eon, getting pulled out of that battle, and Eon unlocks all the potential of his powers, saying, "You're the cosmic guardian of the universe." And then he fights this guy and goes home. Now, that apparently took several months of Marvel time, or whatever it was. And so because of that, that was supposed to elapse all the time between the first issue and all those other appearances, and why he hadn't appeared anywhere for 10 years. And issue 3 is really where the comic book starts and becomes like a traditional superhero comic. Wendell comes back and comes back to his father's house with his alien friend. He quits S.H.I.E.L.D., decides he's going to start up a security company where he builds security systems for corporations and all that. And he meets this gal in an elevator as he's looking for office space in Fantastic Four Plaza. And this gal is like apparently like going for job interviews in like a bra. I don't understand, but she makes a comment about how they don't like what she wears, and he goes, "I like what you wear." It's pretty cheesy, but it's all right. Fun stuff. And the Human Torch ends up thinking that Quasar is a bad guy, but Quasar's really hunting down a different bad guy as that goes on. And I think that's the end of that. Okay, and then we get into the Avengers Annual. So this is a backup story to the Atlantis Attacks main story, which is a whole different storyline. But this is just a single storyline where Captain America is training Quasar, and Quasar gets in a fight with Firelord. It kind of shows how his strength, and just a fun little like thing, and it ends with him getting an Avengers card. Nice little vignette. I liked it. Marvel Comics Presents, we get another backup feature of Quasar, this time with Man-Thing. And I guess this is Man-Thing's like handler or something like that. I haven't read any of the Man-Thing, but weird that there's a naked bikini girl in Man-Thing, I guess. Kind of a weird contrast with the creature. It was a fun little deal, and it just, I think it's just building hype for Quasar and Marvel Presents that people will come and check out the series. Back to the Quasar series, he deals with another character called Aquarian, who's like this beatnik hippie weirdo who's trying to like have like a pacifist lifestyle. And Quasar's trying to hunt down alien galactic threats on behalf of Eon and just make sure that nobody is going to destroy the universe. And they team up together. It was fun. And then we get into an Acts of Vengeance crossover. This is one of Marvel's first like crossover event things. And there's not a ton you need to know about it. I actually came across this originally because I was reading the Acts of Vengeance Omnibus, which I'm still reading. And I thought, oh, Quasar is kind of fun. And actually, it was one of the better issues in that entire omnibus volume. And then when I saw this for $5, I thought, you know, that's a good way to go for it. So this was actually the first issue I read in a different form, and he deals with Absorbing Man and shows off his powers. You know, the concept of Acts of Vengeance is these villains are going up against heroes they haven't faced before so that they can, you know, use a different power set or not have bad matchups like they have in the past. We get a second Acts of Vengeance here, and we get a gratuitous Venom crossover, which was all the rage in 1990. So every book had random Venom crossovers. It lasts 2 pages. Even though they advertise Venom on the cover, that's all you get. Very funny. Venom just sold comic books back then, so they were obviously trying to pump sales of this by doing that. And we end up on the moon where we've got the Watcher and we've got the Red Ghost trying to steal the Watcher's tech, like is traditional with the Red Ghost. Dates back to Fantastic Four, gives you a little classic feel of it. And that's that for this issue, I believe. Oops, I think I skipped over too many pages. And the final Acts of Vengeance crossover, even though we don't have a Acts of Vengeance little tab there, is this, where Spider-Man fights him. Now, Spider-Man at this time has gained weird cosmic powers in the middle of this Acts of Vengeance storyline. And they have a fight, one of those like superhero misunderstandings. And then Quasar asks Spider-Man to team up to fight this Terminus world killer dude who's kind of like a Galactus type of character. And they just shove him into space to apparently go off for eternity. Issue 8, we're still in crossover mode, but this is a Secret Wars crossover, which is odd because Secret Wars was so many years later. But it's actually a pretty nice twist, and if you read Secret War, you get something good out of it, but it's got its own storyline too. Quasar goes back to his little Project Pegasus spot where he originally was, and that's where he originally was working on his powers and stuff like that, and was a security guard there, and was a failure at such. And there's a monster here that was made out of some materials that came from the Beyonder planet, which is why it's a crossover. And he sort of redeems himself, but the guy who's the security guard there now believes he's a kind of screw up. And I should say these last issues are no longer drawn by Paul Ryan. I think it started with issue 7 there, but Mike Manley becomes a penciler from that point forward. And I don't know, Manley's pencils are fine. I liked Paul Ryan's. I think they were a little sharper. I think he drew women a little prettier. But, you know, it's not that big of a difference because the Marvel house style is so similar for all their books at this point in the Marvel Universe. And it closes off with a fight of Modam, the Mind Marauder, who's the female version of MODOK. And we get some baseball. I always love showing baseball in comics, so he's actually hitting asteroids in the universe with a baseball bat. The Quasar's really got a lot of Green Lantern, allegory, what do I want to call it? Similarities, that's what I want to call it, to him. And he makes constructs out of his energy rather than willpower, let's call it. So very similar with that. And then, of course, the Eon helping him deal with galactic threats is very similar to Green Lantern with the what are the race of people called? Those little like blue-green midgets that give them the power rings. I forget what they're called. Oh well, I don't read that much DC. Sorry, but very similar to that. And this one's really cheesy. It starts with AIM, which is a bad guy organization that like is the anti-Shield. They're trying to take over the world, and they've got a conference going on, and their conference is just about how they're changing their ways so that they can help all the other organizations rather than compete with them. And all these bad guys are just sitting here in a convention listening, and you know, Crossbones wants some cold brews. Cheesy concept, pretty funny though. Interesting idea. And eventually they determine they want the powers of Wendell's Quasar. And so they're going to send Modam after him to get his power bracelets. Now, there's been a storyline in here where he's building his security company and pitching for business. He hired that gal who was wearing the really cheesy outfit in that one issue. And now she's part of his sort of background. Like I said, you know, sometimes like the faces just aren't quite as crisp as they were when it was Paul Ryan's art in this, but it's fine. And he fights Modam and, you know, severs her little MODOK arms. Vish, vish. I like those sound effects. And wins his first contract for his business. So this is a good place to end the volume. It's got a single issue sort of deal. And we end with some nice personal elements from that, from his business there. And of course, we've got a budding relationship with his little secretary who's more into him than she lets on, you know, like traditional Marvel comics here. And we got a little bit of extras. We got a sort of introduction from the letters column on the first page. We've got a fake interview of Howard Mackie interviewing the character of Quasar about how he likes his creative team. Pretty cute. And we have the first letters page talking about what they thought of Quasar there. All right, and little bonus there, and little from Marvel Age talks about what's coming up in the Quasar book. And that's it. Pretty simple book, 10 issues or so. If you can find this real cheap, it's out of print, but it's usually pretty cheap. It's just classic superhero fare. So much fun. I love the cosmic elements. I love the Green Lantern-esque feel. It feels fresh, optimistic, real heroism, everything I like out of comics. And I love that Marvel House style from the late 80s. So worked out really well for me. I would say this is like a 9 out of 10. It did have some cheesy elements to it, of course, that, you know, prevented it from getting full marks. But as I read this in one sitting and had tons of fun with it. That's all I can ask for out of comic books. All right, if you like this and you like my takes on things, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. On the art level, like I said, I liked Paul Ryan's stuff at the beginning a little better than Mike Manley's at the end. I don't know if Paul Ryan comes back. I'm not sure. I'll have to research the history on it before I get that next volume that goes up through issue 25. This series did go 60 issues before it was finally canceled, and so it is not collected beyond 25, just so you know. Both these volumes are out of print, though cheap. So easy to obtain. If you like just classic superhero fare, this is going to be something for you for sure. All right, see you guys.